Don't forget to act grateful when we surprise you." My sister snickered over the phone, not realizing I was on the extension. Dad's voice slid in. "Dry as dust. She'll smile or she's out. Simple." Mom chuckled. "Perfect. Everyone will Bether to see it." A small shaking breath lodged behind my ribs. My palms went cold like they'd been dipped in December rain. I thought about every time I'd washed dishes while they toasted someone else. Every time my name was a prop, never a person. The kind of ache that makes your teeth meet too hard. Like the only thing holding you together is bite pressure. Why everyone my name is Haven Lark. I don't tell stories to be believed. I tell them to be felt. A week before Christmas, I overheard my family plan to humiliate me in front of everyone and then throw me out. So I changed my plans. I moved silently like a hand turning off a lamp. Vendors rerouted. Calls made at midnight. On list for what I owed them. One longer list for what they owed me. On December 24th, Mom called, sugar in her tone. "Where are you?" I laughed soft and flat. "Don't wait for me or the catering." In the kitchen, the clock clicked like tiny hammers. Outside, the air smelled of chimney smoke and tangerine peels. I opened the window and let the cold climb in. It steadied me. You can measure a lifetime in what you're willing to swallow. I was done swallowing. They wanted a stage. They'd built it themselves. Strings of warm lights, glossy place cards, a mic that would crackle when the joke landed. The plan, my sisters, was a roast dressed as love, and then a shove dressed as boundaries. They forgot the part where the girl who fetches napkins loans where the invoice is live. I set my phone down and pressed 2 fingers to my wrist, counting beats. Control is a quiet drum. Another call. Dad, this time declined. A text from my aunt. "Bring the cranberry tart at least." A smirk tugged at my mouth. The tart was already delivered to the shelter down the street. So were the trays with names taped on top. Sam and Lee table. Roast head table. Every labeled kindness redirected. Snow began a hush of white noise in it. I heard my own voice for the first time in years. I zipped my coat, picked up an unmarked envelope, and stepped into the night toward the own place in that house they never thought I'd go. The night hair cut sharp against my cheeks, but it was cleaner than anything that lingered inside that house. I walked quickly, boots sinking into soft snow, the envelope pressed against my palm like a live ember. Inside were receipts, photocopies of every bill, every catering deposit, every dime I had poured into their so-called family Christmas. I carried the proof the way someone carries a match before striking it. Through the frost-tipped trees, I saw their house glowing like a stage set. Cars lined the street, exhaust curling upward, muffling the hum of laughter spilling from open windows. For a moment, I just stood there, hidden in the dark, listening. My sister's voice rang loud, full of false brightness. "She's always late. Wait until you hear what we have planned for her." The room erupted in amusement. I let the sound pace me, then settle into steel. I moved toward the side entrance, the one no guest ever used. The service door where I used to carry trays in and out unseen. My key still worked. Of course it did. No one ever changed locks for the girl they thought would always stay obedient. I slipped inside, swallowed by the hum of warm air and the faint sting of cinnamon candles. My heart thudded in rhythm with the clinking of glasses nearby. The dining room was dressed like a magazine spread, polished silverware, a mountain of wrapped boxes under the tree. My family gathered there, glittering in red and gold. Mom raised her hand for silence. When she finally shows, "We'll toast." Then her smile was the same one she used to slice me down when I was 10. I leaned against the doorway, unseen for a moment, just watching them. They rehearsed their cruelty like it was theater. That was when I realized tonight I didn't need to speak louder than them. I only needed to let their stage collapse beneath its own weight. I gripped the envelope tighter, then stepped forward, the wood creaking under my boot. Dozens of heads turned at once. My sister's smirk froze halfway. Thessalance was sudden, sharp, like the pause before a chandelier falls. Every pair of eyes latched onto me as if I had broken the spell. I didn't rush. I let the silence grow long enough to make someone shift uncomfortably in their chair. My sister was the first to speak, her voice pitched high, dripping with the confidence of someone who thought she'd already won. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," she sneered. "Don't worry, everyone. We saved the best joke for last. A few cousins chuckled nervously, waiting for the cue to laugh harder. But something about the way I stood, coat still on, snow melting at my boots, kept them from going too far. I tilted my head slightly. "Funny," I said softly. "That's exactly what I came here to say." Dad's brow furrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" His voice carried authority, but I saw the faint twitch in his jaw. I set the envelope on the table nearest to me, sliding it across polished wood until it stopped in front of Mom's champagne flute. "Every catering order, every deposit, my money, not yours. I kept their seats. Tonight's feast already served elsewhere. Hope you brought an appetite for leftovers." A murmur rippled through the room. Mom's hand trembled as she pulled the papers halfway out. My aunt leaned over, whispering, then gasping. My sister's laugh cracked. "You're bluffing." "She's bluffing." But the truth was inked in bold numbers and signatures. The crowd didn't need my words, just their silence. The way it thickened as realization spread like spilled wine. I stepped closer, letting the glow of the tree light one side of my face, the other swallowed by shadow. "You wanted a stage. You built it. But the punchline isn't mine. It's yours." My cousin coughed, uncomfortable. Someone else shifted in their chair. The room tilted, the power sliding away from the center of the table where it had always been. Then the doorbell rang, a sharp echoing chime. Every head snapped toward the sound, relief sparking in their ears, as if a guest might rescue them from the weight of what I'd laid bare. But I already knew who was waiting outside. The chime echoed again, long and insistent, until my sister finally barked. "Someone get that." A cousin skirted off, his shoes squeaking on the polished wood. The door opened and in swept the cold December air along with 3 men in dark coats, their arms loaded with boxes stamped with a logo noon at that table recognized. "Delivery for the Lark family," one of them announced, their voices carried, steady, practiced. Confusion swept the room. Dad stood, chest puffed, trying to reclaim control. "We didn't order anything." One of the men set a box squarely on the center of the dining table, right on top of Mom's centerpiece of poinsettias and candles. "This is prepaid, signed by Haven Lark." All eyes darted back to me. I didn't flinch. I slipped my gloves off slowly, one finger at a time, letting the silence draw taut. Mom's voice cracked. "What? What is this?" "Your Christmas dinner?" I said, "or what's left of it. Everything you thought was yours, rerouted. These," I tapped the box, "are tier packages. Tonight the shelters eat like royalty." Gasps scattered the room. My aunt covered her mouth. My cousin muttered something about the salmon. My sister went pale, then red, then pale again. Dad's fist slammed the table, rattling glasses. "You ungrateful child." No, my voice cut sharp, colder than his. "Not ungrateful. Unpaid, unnoticed, unwanted until you needed a servant. You wanted me humiliated in front of everyone." I swept my gaze across the guests, their curiosity curdling into discomfort. "Look closer. The only humiliation here isn't mine." The men in coats tipped their hats and left, snow swirling behind them as the door clicked shut. Silence settled, thick as frost. The smell of extinguished candles stung the air where the boxes had crushed them. My family stared at the unopened package like it was a coffin lid. I let the moment breathe, the weight of truth pressing down. Then, with deliberate calm, I pulled out a single folded card from my pocket, one they hadn't seen. "Yet," and I laid it face down in front of my sister. Her fingers hovered over the card, hesitant for the first time in her life. My sister, who always tore into gifts like a queen impatient for jewels, now looked as if a single touch might scorch her. The guests leaned forward, whispers hissing like restless snakes. She flipped it open. The color drained from her face. This isn't real." "Oh, it's real," I said, my voice low but steady. "Every invoice, every bill in your name, every charge I let slide while you played princess. The credit cards, they are gone. Canceled the accounts." I let the words drip slowly like melting icicles. "Frozen." The murmur grew louder. One uncle squinted at the paper, then at her. "Wait. This wedding fund, it's empty." My sister's throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. She tried to laugh, but the sound fractured mid-breath. "She's bluffing. She's just jealous." I shook my head. "Check your phone. Try swiping tomorrow. Or better yet, asked the florist who called Met this morning. Her hands shook as she dug into her clutch, pulling out her phone. The glow of the screen lit her face. One glance and her lips parted in a silent broken gasp around the table. Eyes widened as they caught on. She wasn't bluffing. I wasn't bluffing. Mom clutched Dad's arm, her voice sharp with panic. You let her. No. I cut in, stepping forward, my boots clicking on the wood. You made me. Years of standing in the corner. Years of pretending crumbs were enough. Tonight was supposed to be my humiliation. I only mirrored yours back to you. The room had shifted completely now. Guests who came for lauder and spectacle sat stiff, unflickering in their eyes. A few even looked at me, not with pity, but with something closer to respect. My sister's phone slipped from her hand and cluttered against the floor. The sound cracked through the silence, and in that sharp, stunned quiet, I whispered just loud enough, "Merry Christmas," and then I turned toward the staircase because my next move wasn't here at the table. It was upstairs. The stairs creaked under my boots, each step louder than the last. Behind me, voices rose. Mom calling my name, Dad demanding I come back down here right now. But none of them followed. Fear or pride kept them glued to their seats. The hallway smelled faintly of pine and old wood polish. Family portraits lined the walls, smiling faces in matching sweaters, a gallery of lies. At the end of the hall was my old room, the door still painted in the pale lavender I'd chosen. At 12, I pushed it open. Everything was untouched, staged like a museum exhibit. My trophies, my books, even the cracked snow globe I'd begged to keep. All frozen in time, like I'd never grown beyond the version of meth they preferred. But tucked under my bed, exactly where I'd left it, was the small lockbox no one ever thought to check. The key turned easily. Inside lay a stack of papers neatly folded. Not bills, not receipts this time, but ownership documents, shares of the family business. I'd bought them quietly, year after year with the money they never asked about. While they mocked me as the outsider, I became the silent partner they never noticed. I traced the embossed seal with my thumb, my chest steady. Downstairs, laughter had toned brittle, anxious. They still thought the damage ended at dinner. They had no idea the foundation itself was already mine. Footsteps sounded at the base of the stairs, hesitant, light. My sister's voice trembling now. Haven, what are you doing up there? I slipped the papers into my coat pocket and stepped back into the hallway. The tree lights downstairs flickered against the wall, distorted shadows stretching long. I'm just collecting what was always mine, I called down, my tone calm, almost gentle. A pause. Then her whisper floated back, breaking on the edges of disbelief. You can't. You wouldn't. But she knew. She always knew I was quieter, not weaker. I descended one step at a time, the weight of the papers heavy in my pocket, my final card. And this time the silence followed me, not them. By the time I reached the bottom step, the living room had changed. The laughter was gone, replaced by restless murmurs, the kind that coil in a room when people realize the story isn't playing out the way they expected. My parents stood at the center like stranded monarchs, brittle crown slipping. My sister lingered by Thedable, pale, her eyes fixed on my coat pocket as if she could see the edges of the documents through the fabric. I moved closer, steady, unhurried. Every gaze followed. The lights from the tree flickered, casting gold halos on the walls, but the warmth in the room hadbled out. Dad tried first, his voice hard with strain. This is family business, Haven. You don't parade it in front of guests. I let the weight of his words fall uselessly between us. Exactly, I said. Family business. And lucky for me, I pulled the papers free and laid them flat on the table, right on top of the unopened box. I own more of it than you ever bothered to notice. Gasps rippled. Someone stood to see better. My mother's hand trembled over her necklace, her knuckles white. My aunt whispered, Shaz, is this true? Dad's face flushed crimson. Those are forged. They are notarized. I cut in, every percentage accounted for. While you mocked me, I invested. While you planned to push me out, I was already inside. My sister's voice cracked. Why? Why would you do this? I looked at her, not with hate, but with something sharper. Because you never saw me. You only saw what I could serve. Tonight was supposed to be my ending. Instead, it's your mirror. The room went still, heavy with realization. Guests shifted uneasily. a few glancing toward the door as if escape might spare them the discomfort of watching a family unravel. I stepped back, sliding the papers into Mom's untouched cranberry glass. "Merry Christmas," I whispered again, this time not bitter but final. And then I turned toward the door, my boots carrying me through the cold draft of truth that now clung to every corner of that house. The front door groaned as I pulled it open, and for a breath the house clung to me. Warmth, chatter, the faint sting of pine candles. But it wasn't mine. It never had been. Snow swept in, curling around my ankles, reminding me the night was wide and waiting. Behind me, voices rose, desperate. My mother's strained call. "Haven, wait! We can talk." My father's bark, brittle with pride. "You'll regret this stunt." My sister's plea, fragile, breaking. "Please don't leave it like this." I paused on the threshold, one hand on the frame. For the first time, I wasn't trembling. Their words didn't pierce. They slid off me like snow melting on a window pane. I turned just enough to see their faces, their perfect tableau now fractured, fear and disbelief carved into each expression. "I didn't bone this house down," I said softly. I just stopped holding it up. A silence thicker than any storm followed. Guests stayed, caught between sympathy and awe. Some looked at me with quiet nods, as if they understood. Others couldn't meet my gaze, ashamed they had laughed earlier when cruelty was rehearsed as comedy. I stepped into the snow. The door shut behind me with a heavy click. Outside, the world was crisp and untouched. Street lamps glowed against falling flakes, the air sharp with freedom. For once, the cold didn't bite. It cleared in my pocket. The documents pressed warm against my side. Proof not of revenge alone, but of reclamation. They wanted to write my story as humiliation. Instead, I walked away carrying the pen. I didn't need applause. I didn't need them to say I was right. The quiet truth was enough. I had broken free without breaking myself. As I reached the corner, I heard the faint echo of the church bells striking midnight. Christmas had arrived. Not theirs, mine. And with each toll, I felt lighter, as if the snow itself whispered, "You are no longer theirs to diminish." I kept walking, leaving footprints they could never